Born as Honora Kelly on March 31, 1854, in Boston, Massachusetts, Jane Toppan's origins trace back to Irish immigrants. Tragedy struck her early when her mother, Bridget Kelly, succumbed to tuberculosis during her tender years. Her father, Peter Kelly, left a peculiar imprint on those who knew him, being both an eccentric and an abusive alcoholic, earning the nickname Kelly the Crack, as if to underline his unconventional nature. In later times, anecdotes surfaced about Kelly's bizarre actions, including tales of sewing his own eyelids shut while plying his trade as a tailor. In the year 1860, a mere handful of years subsequent to his wife's passing, Peter Kelly took the step of relinquishing his two youngest offspring, 8-year-old Delia Josephine and 6-year-old Honora, to the care of the Boston Female Asylum, an establishment aimed at providing refuge for underprivileged young girls. This decision led to a permanent separation, as he never crossed paths with them again. Asylum records bear witness to the dire conditions the siblings were extracted from, emphasizing their rescue from an abject home. The specific accounts of their tenure within the asylum remain shrouded, yet it is rumored that Delia's life later took a distressing turn toward prostitution, while their older sister Nellie, who didn't share their fate, found herself institutionalized in a mental asylum. In the waning months of 1862, scarcely 2 years after her father's abandonment, Honora's fate took a turn as she entered the household of Mrs. Anna C. Toppan in Lowell, Massachusetts, under indentured servitude. Although the Toppans never officially adopted her, Honora embraced their surname as a way of dissociating herself from her prior family. This shift marked the genesis of her transformation into Jane Toppan. The original Toppan family already encompassed a daughter named Elizabeth, with whom Honora fostered a harmonious relationship. In the year 1885, Toppan embarked on a journey of nursing education at Cambridge Hospital. In stark contrast to her earlier years characterized by a blend of brilliance and darkness, her demeanor at the hospital took on a different shade. Described as friendly, bright, and well-liked, she earned the affectionate moniker Jolly Jane. As she forged connections with patients, she developed a predilection for a certain few, often elderly and gravely ill individuals. During her time as a resident, Toppan conducted unsettling experiments with morphine and atropine on her patients, manipulating their prescribed dosages to study the effects on their nervous systems. In addition to these clinical trials, she spent considerable time in seclusion with her patients, concocting fictitious medical charts, administering medications to induce states of altered consciousness, and even crossing boundaries by sharing their beds. In 1889, Toppan's skills gained recognition, and she secured a position at the esteemed Massachusetts General Hospital. However, her tenure there marked the beginning of a sinister trajectory, resulting in several more deaths before her eventual dismissal in the subsequent year. Briefly returning to Cambridge, her reckless administration of opiates led to another dismissal. Unfazed, she transitioned into a career as a private nurse, despite occasional allegations of petty theft. The true escalation of her malevolent activities began in 1895 with the murder of her landlord, Israel Dunham, and his wife. This pattern continued with the killing of her foster sister, Elizabeth, in 1899, accomplished using a dose of strychnine. Toppan's dark path led her to move in with Alden Davis, an elderly individual mourning the loss of his wife, Maddie, who was another of Toppan's victims. In rapid succession, she claimed the lives of Davis, his sister Edna, and 2 daughters, Minnie and Genevieve, in 1901. When the surviving members of the Davis family suspected foul play, they ordered a toxicology examination on Minnie, confirming their fears of poisoning. Local authorities intervened, placing Toppan under close police surveillance. Eventually, on October 29, 1901, she was arrested on charges of murder. By 1902, her confession extended to an astonishing count of 31 murders. In the aftermath of her trial, one of William Randolph Hearst's newspapers, the New York Journal, purportedly published Toppan's confession to her attorney. In her statement, she confessed to even more than the already staggering 31 murders, expressing a desire for the jury to find her sane, enabling a possibility of release in the future. In court, she asserted her own sanity, arguing that she couldn't be considered insane if she possessed an awareness of her actions and their moral implications. However, the verdict deemed her insane, leading to her commitment. On June 23, 1902, within the confines of the Barnstable County Courthouse, she was declared not guilty by reason of insanity and institutionalized at the Taunton Insane Hospital for the remainder of her life. She passed away there on August 17, 1938, at the age of 84. An article featured in the Hoosier State Chronicles, shortly following her arrest, detailed Toppan's unsettling behaviors. It recounted that she engaged in disturbing actions such as fondling her victims as they neared death, seemingly attempting to peer into their souls through their eyes. During questioning, she admitted to deriving a twisted sexual thrill from being in close proximity to patients as they teetered on the edge of death, oscillating between life and its cessation. In her method, Toppan would concoct a lethal mixture of drugs for her chosen victims, and as they drew their last breaths, she would lay beside them, holding them tightly until their demise. Toppan often falls into the archetype of an angel of mercy, a kind of serial killer who assumes a caregiver role to exploit the vulnerable and dependent individuals under her care. Yet, her motives also took more personal turns, as evidenced by the case of the Davis family. In some instances, jealousy may have fueled her actions, such as when she murdered her foster sister. Reflecting on her motivations later on, she described an overwhelming paralysis of rational thought, an irresistible urge to administer poison. Toppan's use of poison extended beyond murder. Reports suggest she employed toxic substances for various nefarious purposes. There are accounts of her deliberately poisoning a housekeeper with a dosage just sufficient to simulate drunkenness, effectively allowing her to take the woman's position and eventually eliminate the entire household. Her deviousness even reached the point of poisoning herself, a ploy aimed at eliciting sympathy from men who sought her affections.